All right, everybody, welcome back live at Drew's house, another edition. Hope everybody is doing well as we grind our way through almost to the end of another week. So hope everybody's moving right through September too, my goodness. I'm going to bring in my first guest right now. He's already ready to go. Here he is, Dom Nicastro. How are you, Dom? Good to meet you.
Good, Drew. Good to meet you. How you doing, buddy?
Good, man. We've just talked about this off the air. You're a North Shore media guy. You got your own show. We'll talk about that actually in a little bit because that's part of the reason why I know you. Before we even get going, though, let's start on a light note. Where are you? We don't get too many outside guests.
Well, I had to move outside of a busy coffee shop. I'm waiting for my son to get out of his school. I am one of the victims of the lack of bus driver situation going on right now. So I take him to and from school, hang out at the coffee shop, do a lot of work. And hopefully people will start wanting to drive buses again so I can not have to do that.
It is, not to completely digress, but it is amazing. That is a real thing. I just talked to the schools in Brockton because we were getting complaints from people in Brockton about, buses being behind, buses not showing up. How bad is it in Beverly?
It's not, it's North Shore wide. I mean, Greater Boston. I mean, you're hearing stories about like Chelsea School District not being able to bring kids. I mean, loads of kids, elementary to class. It's one of the byproducts of the drastically changing economy, jobs marketplace. Unemployment insurance. Let's not sugarcoat it. That's a part of it too. And that just ended. So hopefully people want to start to get out and get back to work. But hey, the kids still get into school safely, but it's just my responsibility now.
So last question on this. What is your day? Do you have to be at like in this area at a certain time every day? Is that the deal?
Yeah, pretty much. Just, it's a 9 to 3 school day where he goes, and it's in between. So it basically kills an hour. Sometimes it might kill 2 hours of my work day. So it's kind of challenging. I have a full-time job in addition to being the North Shore radio and media guy, which we'll talk about in a bit. My full-time job is technology journalist. So I got to be ready to rock, get my content in the queue, no excuses kind of thing. So you do what you can, man. You go to the coffee shop and it's got good Wi-Fi and coffee. I'm in.
Well, good for you, man. That's thanks for joining us too in the middle of your busy day. Unfortunately, what kind of led me to you was a very a sad story. A guy that I know you and I both know. I knew him from a young age. I hadn't quite seen him as much in recent years, but everybody on the North Shore seemed to know Ben Goodhue, the teacher, Ben Goodhue, the coach, Ben Goodhue, the good guy, and he passed away here. Just hours ago, and I think a lot of us knew it was coming who were following his story, but just a devastating loss to the North Shore. And I know he was a huge fan of your sports show. He was always tweeting about it and all that. And what was your gut reaction when you heard that news the other night?
Yeah, devastation. Like you said, you expect it. It's coming. Because a few months ago, they decided that the treatment wasn't the option anymore. It was, doctors reached that point of, hey, you know what, we're just going to keep you as comfortable and as possible. We're not going to fight this anymore. The fight is done. We've done everything we can, and the family, conceded with that. But it's still, when it happens, everyone finds out from Facebook these days, when you see that first post, whoever it may be, a brother, a family member, a friend, it just hits you in the gut. You get that sick feeling, and you start to think of the family and friends and all the countless student athletes he impacted on North Shore sports playing fields, in North Shore classrooms. He's a teacher. And it's funny, I knew Ben going way back to high school at Gloucester High School. So I was class of 95, he was class of 93. And I knew of him as just this, he never stopped. Like, he was the guy that on the field, on the court, was moving at all times. He was just energetic. He was the rah-rah guy. Let's go, get pumped up. Never stopped. He had the energy of just you can't even imagine. So that's how I first remember him. And he applied that same energy, Drew, onto the football field. He was the rallier. He was the guy who rallied the troops before a game, got them pumped up. If you weren't into it, he'd make sure you did. So yeah, just to see his life cut down and like that, just by this horrible disease, brain cancer, was tragic, unfortunate, and totally shocking.
Energy was the word I kept thinking too. And if anybody ever asked me about him, it would be just from like my whole life. Remember, I was 10 years old, I think, and going to it because he had about 10 years on me. I think you guys are about 10 years older. And he was doing like the camps, like through the town of Danvers, like, being an instructor. And that energy, he could get you to play a game that you didn't even want to play, but like just the energy would, all right, if he can be that excited about it, I can get into this. And he became one of those people. For me, he was like kind of the cool park instructor as a 10-year-old that like, do I want to go down to the park today and, play in these games? You know what I kind of do, because Ben makes it cool and Ben makes it exciting. And that's the kind of guy he was. He like uplifted everybody, and he did that into adult life too, obviously. Yeah.
His positivity was, it just was incredibly contagious, right? You look at people and you say, geez, nothing really slows him down. Nothing slows her down. Well, that was literally the case. Brain cancer didn't even slow Ben down. I have a couple examples of that. I had 3 years ago, I was having some issues with one of my dogs overnight. You know how horrible that is, like the overnight facilities. And I had a radio show, the North Shore Sports Desk, who you mentioned that earlier. That's 104.9 FM, North Shore 104.9 FM. And I had that in the morning, and I'm like, what am I going to do? I can't leave Nick all alone. Nick Kukuru is my co-host. It's hard to do an hour-long show alone. It's nice to have someone to bounce off. I was like, I'm gonna instant message Ben Goodhue, our number one fan, see if he wants to pop in, talk North Shore Sports. And without hesitation, just responded like, tell me what to do. Tell me when time to show up. Brought that energy. And one of his opening lines was, Dom who, right? Dom who, he says when he gets in there. He was a riot in that sense. And the other example, too, was we had a show at a local Beverly restaurant, Super Sub Shop, one of our sponsors. And it was when all the Beverly student athletes would come in and talk about their seasons, the captains. And Ben, again, going through brain cancer, just shows up, shows his support of the athletes, takes pictures with us, gets on air a little bit, and just mixing it up with everybody. And, it was the image of him with that much energy, the smile, with patches of hair gone from his head, through chemo treatments and stuff like that. That contrast was like, you never forgot what he was going through, but you could have, you wouldn't be able to tell if he didn't have those patches of hair on his head missing, because his energy was just through the roof.
I'm not sure. I think for most of the years that I really saw him on a daily basis when I was younger, he was one of the more physically fit guys you'll ever see. He took a lot of pride in that. He was a gym rat, right?
Yeah, number 87 on Gloucester football. Receiver, and he had a lot of roles on that team. He was a junior on the first Super Bowl team in a long, long time for Gloucester, 1991 Super Bowl team, and then he ended up finishing out his career the following year. That was a great team. Ben was a big part of it. He was class of 93 at Gloucester. And then on the basketball court, tall guy. He could mix it up there, throw people around in the paint. He wasn't like your lights out shooter, Larry Bird or anything, but I'm trying to think of a comparison of him on the basketball. He was, you know what he was like? He was like Kelly Olynyk, right? Mm-hmm. Just doing a lot of good things that don't get you on ESPN. Mm-hmm. They don't get you in the newspaper that much, but he was an integral part of the basketball team too.
I always think when, for some reason, I don't know if you feel this way, I always think when somebody passes away as a teacher or coach or something, you can I tend to get a pretty good feel whether they were actually like really liked by the kids, or like, how much of an impact they really made. You always get nice messages, but the first thing that jumped out to me with Ben was like, oh man, look at these people that are writing things about just how he genuinely impacted life. Maybe a better man, maybe a better woman, maybe a better teacher. I got into teaching because of Ben. Just the messages were like, people were just not saying one line things. I mean, if you go on Facebook right now and search his name, you can see a million just long messages. Probably doesn't surprise you knowing him for as long as you have, but it doesn't surprise me, but that's the kind of guy he was.
He was, and he has that much love and affection because he extended himself to those people for years. He went above and beyond, and what I mean is, even going through treatment, he saw an opportunity to help others going through treatment. He was part of groups, help groups. When his treatment was so up and down, of course, like everyone's is. When he had his great moments, like I got this, I beat it. He was realistic, I beat it for now, but he was positive, and he would spread. He told us in a radio interview in 2018 that he feels like he needs to be an outlet for people, like he needs to be an outlet, like in his shoes, he should need the outlet, right? Like he should seek others' help, but he was reaching out to help people during his treatment. I mean, what better mark of a person, or a better mark on this earth can you leave?
Very caring too. I remember, and I've seen a couple stories like this too. If there was ever somebody who was, I specifically remember this from those days, like down at the park when he was working for the recreation department. And, those things can be kind of weird if you're young and you're socially awkward and maybe you're not in the clique friends. Like he would always kind of seem to look for that person. And this is like young Drew remembering this too, but I always, for some reason, it just stands out to me that he would like kind of look for the person that wasn't involved or wasn't jumping in the game or, wasn't with all the friends and like get them involved. That's what he would look to do.
Yeah. Yeah. He was part of a big group of friends there in Gloucester and a big group of athletes. What was also special about him was that I feel like Ben sort of connected, he connected a couple of communities, right? Well, many communities on the North Shore, but we're small here, right? On the North Shore, we're very insular, right? We're all on top of each other here, geographically. Everybody knows everybody. But Ben, he was so passionate about his hometown in Gloucester and the influences he had there, coaches like Terry Silva, Paul Ingram. But then he went to Beverly and moved there. He had a couple stints in North Shore towns, but I feel like Gloucester and Beverly were two homes for him, and those particular communities were very special to him. Beverly was absolutely an adopted hometown for Ben, adopted school. He just gave his passion wherever he was. That was his home, and that was his passion. And to see the growth in affection and love for him over the years in many North Shore towns was just so special.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The dog Henry's sometimes makes his voice heard here. You can probably hear
That's all right. That's the world we're in, Drew.
You get the dog father shirt on.
Yeah. It was amazing. We in Gloucester, we had a hard time actually seeing Ben across the sidelines so many times, especially in Danvers. That's where he started. Like he made an appearance as a coach in football in Reading, then in Danvers, and seeing him and all that energy in Falcons blue was tough for us. I'm like, Ben, what are you doing, man?
I should declare I am a Danvers Falcon myself. So
yeah. And in the decade that Ben started in Gloucester definitely had the upper edge, except for 2002 and 4. Danvers had huge wins over Gloucester on Thanksgiving Day. I'm not sure when Ben started in Danvers, but he always kept Gloucester close to home, and he eventually returned there in an assistant role in the last 5 years or so. He was Reading, Danvers, Marblehead. Beverly. He won a couple Super Bowls, Beverly, 2010 and 2012, went on to Marblehead, and then back to Gloucester. So he kind of came full circle.
It's funny you mentioned that because I was, this show is actually based out of Newburyport. And hang on, let me pause that real quickly and just get the dog outside. All right. Again, our guest today is Dom Nicastro. I just got the dog outside. We were just briefly talking earlier about the how the dogs can ruin shows. This is work from home life in 2021. My goodness.
I know.
They can be loud. But you mentioned how he, all across the North Shore, he had all these jobs. But this show is based out of Newburyport, like I was saying. And people saw a post I made on him. And I had so many people be like, oh, I recognize him from just being around sports, being around North Shore athletics. You bumped into him. He had a familiar face, and you saw the pictures, and you said, oh, yeah, I recognize him. I don't even remember what field I saw him at. But he seemed to always be around. And he was just – the North Shore really has lost a big player here, a big personality. And it is very sad.
Yeah, let's not forget the physical stature too. He's like 6'5", 6'6". He was a big boy, but like in shape, tall, and just a commanding physical presence. An absolute teddy bear of a disposition, but a commanding physical presence. So you noticed him right off the bat. And it also helped that he was pretty excitable on the sidelines too. You have your coaches that are, buried in their headset, like you have your Belichick's, right? Just sitting there looking at things, talking with this upstairs. Ben was the more, let's go, get in the game, You could not be dormant. You could not be uninterested. He would call you out on it pretty fast, and you kind of had to be. You fed off his energy.
We talk so much about he's so recognized as a coach because of that energy, I think. But also, I had so many people. I saw so many comments on how he made teaching, on how his teaching style just made the classroom fun as well. I just read one thing about how I remember he taught us, had us read the book Old Man in the Sea. And I've never forgot reading that book in that class. One of my buddies said, because the discussions we had afterwards, he just made it so interesting and asked interesting questions to all of us. And he goes, I'll just never forget. I loved having him teach us and reading that book through that class. And I thought that was kind of cool too. He's a good teacher as well.
Yeah. I never saw him in that capacity, but I take your word for it. You had him and we were just 2 years apart, so never saw him in that role. Yeah. But I could totally see it. Every topic he was probably enthusiastic about, whether it was the mundane stuff or the actual exciting stuff. So I could totally see Ben being like that.
Well, really, this is going to be missed. What was it about your show? Tell us a little bit about your show too, because man, he loved that. What was it about it that drew him in so much?
I have no idea. He's like the only one that gives us feedback. But we've been there. The North Shore Sports Desk. It's on North Shore 104.9 FM. It's been there before my time. So I started in 2013 there. Still going with my co-host Nick Kukuru, who's joined me since that time. And Ben has always been an ambassador. He had always been an ambassador of our show. And let me tell you this, right up until last Saturday. So that was Saturday, September 11th. He was posting about the show. And I don't want to speak to where he was. I don't know for sure, but I assume he's probably in hospice care at that time. Because that was, a few days before he passed. And I'm like, wow, that's profound. Right up until the end. But that was right in line with his consistent plugs for the show. Listen to North Shore Sports Desk, tune in. It's a great day. He would do riddles sometimes, that kind of thing. It's a great day to be out here because the crew is going to be far and near or whatever. Cute little sayings. We couldn't thank him enough. And we would mention him often on the air all the time. And it wasn't just because he was battling this amazing fight with brain cancer. We would talk about him before he even was diagnosed, and he loved the show, I think, because he just loved being a fan and a promoter and an ambassador of North Shore student athletes. He loved seeing student athletes succeed in the classroom and on the field. He always talked about that with us. When he would come in, so when he came in that day to fill in for me, that's a lot for someone who's not in media, right? It's like, all right, I love sports, but radio is different, right? I get an athlete on the phone. I know what they're all about. I know what they're going through, but asking them questions on live radio, it's kind of challenging. He fit in. He fit in fine. He was asking them great questions. Who's your mentor in the classroom? What's going on for the next level? How do you balance academics and athletics? He was always, he always had keen insights, making athletes feel comfortable when he co-hosted with us like 3 to 5 times. And yeah, he was a great fill-in, reliable. Just text him, he come right in. And yeah, I think that's the reason why he liked us, because he loved listening to the athletes and their stories, and he was their biggest fan.
Yep, I don't doubt that. He's probably one of those guys who'd probably do whatever he put his mind to, he'd do well at. But he, no doubt about it, he loved the student athletes. And yeah, I think anybody can kind of relate to this. There's certain people in your community who just do give back in that way, give their energy to student athletes and high school sports in that way. And just love teaching what they know about sports. And I know several people come to mind who helped me along the way. And Ben was certainly like that. That's why you saw him on the sidelines. You saw him at the parks. You saw him doing all that stuff. And he will be missed. So what's one story you can tell us that people don't know? Something from can be back from the high school days.
Oh man, I don't have one specific one that comes to mind. So he was 2 years ahead of me, so I wasn't in his gang.
Yeah.
But I do recall. We used to go to a restaurant, Steve's Family Restaurant. We used to get roast beefs, right, after GHS basketball games. And I just remember him being a presence at Steve's. That was the big hangout back then. She said, I don't know if kids don't even do that anymore. I mean, I don't even know if they meet up in person anymore. I think they just go on their phones and start gabbing about the game after, which is fine.
It's a tough time to ask.
It is. But the stories I'll always remember about Ben is bringing how he somehow found the strength to be positive, be supportive of those student athletes, like in person. The one at Super Sub, where we had that show with like 18 to 20 Beverly High School student athletes, captains in there, and the connections he had with those student athletes, the high fives, like, hey man, you know everybody's name. Hey, Mr. Goodhue, Coach Goodhue, what's up, Coach? What's up, Coach? Paul Guanci, the owner of Super Sub, called him Coach. Like, that's a real affectionate kind of thing, where you call someone Coach, even though they're not your coach. It's a real good feeling. I've had people in my town in Swampscott, I was Little League coach. Say, hey, Coach, how you doing? I'm like, that made my day. I was a Little League coach like 5 years ago. But he brought that energy through his fight for brain cancer. And I'm like, what's even happening right now? This guy just had surgery and he's just hanging out with us. It was remarkable. He really overcame a lot of odds. And in the end, it was just too powerful. And they decided to, go the route of just keeping him as comfortable as possible in his final months. And even in that, he had an amazing spirit. Again, he tweeted or in Facebook about us 3 days before he passed. I mean, the energy was there right up until the end. And those stories of seeing him on the sidelines is what I'll remember the most, being so energetic, almost like he was still a player. I think he felt like he was still a player in many ways. He never left that. And that was cultivated through the Gloucester football program and the life lessons he learned there. He was a loyal guy, and he'll be just so terribly missed.
Yeah, you mentioned those Danvers High years. I know you don't like talking about those good years, but those were my high school years. A bunch of my guys played for him and said he was the best. All of them say, great role model and just a good guy to be around. So we will certainly miss him. Where can we find you, Dom? Tell us a little bit about your work. Where can we send people to go if they want to learn a little bit more about you?
Yeah, the best thing to do to follow the show is obviously tune in. North Shore 1049 FM, Saturday mornings, every Saturday morning, 8 to 9 a.m. We're not huge social media ambassadors, but we do have Nick and Nick it's called Nick and Nick because part of my last name is Nick, and then the first name of my co-host is Nick. So Nick and Nick at the North Shore Sports Desk. So, we're on SoundCloud too. I'm sure that's in this asynchronous world we're in. That's probably where most people listen to us is on the SoundCloud recordings. So North Shore 1049 SoundCloud, and then Sports Desk. You'll find all our clips.
All right. Well, Dom Nicastro, Ben Goodhue, bringing two more people together. There you go. Good to meet you. And
Yeah,
thanks.
certainly.
Thanks for sharing some stories of your good friend there. And I know he's a big loss for so many communities, as we talked about here on the North Shore, and just a big personality gone too soon. And damn that cancer. Hopefully we can keep making progress in a good way.
Yep, I know. And thanks to Ben for connecting the whole. I don't remember one individual who connected the North Shore like this in so many. Well, okay, that was a false statement. Pete Frates.
Yeah.
Okay, Pete Frates connected the world. And Ben had sort of kind of like that impact on the North Shore and a little beyond too. So I would say that's a fair comparison in his own right.
Yep. Good man. Ben Goodhue, rest in peace. All the best to the family. I know, Dom, you started the show by saying that, and we're thinking of them certainly this week. Great guy. Dom Nicastro, also great to meet you. Thanks for coming on. I know you're a busy man, and good luck picking up the kid with the buses.
You got it, Drew. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure, man. Thanks.
All right.